Governor Phil Bryant was sworn in for his second term as Mississippi's 64th governor on January 12, 2016. Before becoming the state's chief executive, Bryant was lieutenant governor from 2008 to 2011. He also served as state auditor and represented his legislative district in the Mississippi House of Representatives for 5 years. The son of Dewey C. and Estelle R. Bryant, a diesel mechanic, and a mother who stayed home with her 3 boys, Bryant learned early the value of hard work and the importance of education. The Morehead native earned an associate's degree in criminal justice from Hines Community College and completed his bachelor's degree at the University of Southern Mississippi. He holds a master's degree in political science from Mississippi College, and before assuming his role as governor, Bryant served as an adjunct professor of government there. Governor Bryant began his career as a deputy sheriff in Hines County and later worked as an insurance investigator before being elected to the House of Representatives in 1991. In 1996, then Governor Kirk Fordyce appointed him as state auditor, a position he was reelected to in 1999 and 2003. As governor, Phil Bryant has led Mississippi in implementing transformational public education reforms, promoting economic development, and building a competitive business climate that attracts major employers like Yokohama Tire Corporation and Continental Tire. Under Governor Bryant's administration, over 21,000 jobs have been announced, along with $3.1 billion in new corporate investments. He is also an avid outdoorsman and is a longtime member of the National Rifle Association's Institute for Legislative Action. Governor Bryant and his wife, First Lady of Mississippi, Miss Deborah Bryant, have 2 adult children, Katie Bryant Snell and Patrick Bryant, and are active members of St. Mark's United Methodist Church. I've had the distinct honor of working for Governor Bryant on his campaign and his inauguration staff, which I was truly blessed to do. And he has been a personal mentor and leader for me, and has taught me to stand up for what I believe in and always try to do the right thing. Let's give a warm Boys State welcome to Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant.
Good morning. Morning. Good morning. Anybody getting any sleep? About half of you. All right, the other half's not sleeping at all. So, look, I have been to Boys State for many years because I enjoy it so much. My son Patrick enjoyed being in Boys State. I learned a lot from you guys. I'm going to talk just a little bit and then take some questions from you. My job today is to remind you that you live in the greatest state in the nation. The absolute best state in the nation. Look around. Look at this wonderful campus. This is just one of many of our great university campuses. Look at this building. I'll be touring an innovative center here in just a short while after I speak to you that will help what I call create the startup state. The startup state is that state of Mississippi, the best in the nation, that will help start more new businesses than any other state. Now, we're not doing that just yet, but we will. But as a matter of fact, we're number 5 in the nation for new women-owned businesses. Now, think about that. We do a better job of helping women create their own businesses than 45 other states across America. You read about that, didn't you? You heard that on the evening news? No, you didn't. No, unfortunately, too much of the time, you hear the narrative that we're on the bottom of all the good lists and at the top of all the bad lists. It's just not necessarily so. You heard some of the numbers that we've helped people find jobs. Now, government doesn't create jobs, but we create an environment where you can go out and find a job. Yeah, pretty soon you're going to have to find one, I hate to tell you. After going to one of our fine universities here, perhaps you even want to go out of state. I hear there's some other universities in somewhere other than Mississippi. Some of them finding out we know how to play baseball. All right then. Yeah, look, we're hosting 2 regionals. We've got already the Conference USA champion at the University of Southern Mississippi. Everybody's fighting now trying to get to Omaha. The whole world's trying to figure out how we learned how to play baseball down here. We've been doing it for a while. We're very good at it. But you see, we're also very good at making automobiles, aren't we? In Canton, Mississippi, not Canton, China, we make about 340,000 Nissans a year. In Canton, Mississippi. We just started the new Titan pickup truck. I drove it off last year to show the world that the only place that manufactures the new Titan pickup truck is Canton, Mississippi. So wherever you're at in North America, if you're driving a pickup truck made by Nissan, that new Titan is made in Canton. 8 different models are made there. There's more technology in that pickup truck than was in Apollo 13. It was carrying man to the moon. And then if you go to Tupelo, just outside of there at Blue Springs, we're making about 150, 200,000 Toyota Corollas. So you see, we're making nearly 500,000 automobiles, and some of the world's most advanced automobiles right here in Mississippi. Yesterday, I was at VT Halter. We celebrated the USNS Maori. The Maori is a ship that will go around the world mapping the sea floor. It was manufactured in Pascagoula, Mississippi. The USS Maori's looking at making sure that we know what happens on that sea floor. Not only so we can take advantage of making our submariners safe when they're traveling in those Virginia-class submarines like the USS Mississippi, but we can have an advantage over our adversaries. Isn't that what we want? So if they're going to plant mines on the ocean bottom, the USS Maori, made in Mississippi, will be able to identify it and save the lives of our sailors and submariners into the future. You know, we have only maps of 3% of the ocean floor. We have more mapping of the moon's surface and Mars than we do our own ocean. USNS Maori is going to help cure that. Just down the road at Ingalls, we make the most advanced warships on the planet. The very best destroyers for our war fighters. Huge flat-deck destroyers and aircraft carriers, smaller aircraft carriers that are designed for the fast, effective wars that you're going to see into the future that some of you will be a part of. Some of you will be there with our war fighters. And oh, by the way, this is the most patriotic state in America. You know, I know that. The Department of Defense looked around and said, we're going to put a military cemetery somewhere in the southeast, and we need to know how many of the population in those states served, how many are veterans and how many are serving now, and they decided that it was Mississippi that did more to protect the world's freedom than any other state in America and in the southeast. Raytheon and Forest, Mississippi. Anybody from Forest? There you go. Radar systems that are used around the world. Yeah, they're used in Israel. As I was there in Israel meeting with Netanyahu, the prime minister, he was talking about how the Iron Dome protects Israel from the rockets that are being sent in from Palestine, and how that area there is protected, thank goodness, because of the radar manufactured in Forest, Mississippi by Raytheon. You may not have heard of these things. May not know that SpaceX is testing their rockets. Ever heard of them? They're a little company that one day intend to put man on Mars. They had a very successful landing of one of their spacecraft, a vertical landing of a spacecraft, things like that we used to see on science fiction movies, and SpaceX is doing that because they're testing those rockets. Yesterday, as we were driving by the big Rolls-Royce Center, one of my staff said, what is Rolls-Royce doing down here? They're testing their jet engines. And GE, while we manufacture GE's jet engines in 2 different locations in Mississippi, in Batesville, Mississippi, and in Ellisville, we assemble and manufacture the GE jet engines going on the 777, 787. So if you're sitting in that seat, you're looking out the window at one of those GE jet engines, more than likely it was made in Mississippi. You don't get to hear these remarkable things. 22 million people visited this state last year. 22 million visitors. We made 19 movies. We've made 14 so far, and it's just the 1st of June. 14 movies so far in the state of Mississippi. We opened up the Grammy Center in Cleveland not long ago. The Grammy Museum, there's two. There's one in Los Angeles and there's one in Cleveland, Mississippi. Well, that fits, doesn't it? That goes together. The curator of the Grammy Museum said, you know, my guys I'm having trouble with. They don't want to go back because your museum is better than ours. Ours is old out there in L.A. No, we thank them so much because they've done such a remarkable job of helping us make sure that we have a world-class Grammy Museum. And just down the road in Indianola, of course, is the museum and final resting place of the King of the Blues, B.B. King. You see, this is the birthplace of America's music, rock and roll. Elvis Presley was born in Tupelo, Mississippi, not Memphis. Tupelo, Mississippi. Jimmy Rogers, you may have never heard of him. Google him. He was the father of country music. Used to call it country and western, born in Meridian, Mississippi. And, of course, B.B. King, the legendary king of the blues right there in Indianola. All the genres of America's music, jazz that came from the blues, gospel music that's had such an effect on all the entertainers. I remember I had a guest at the mansion. You may have heard of Mick Jagger. Mick was at the mansion because they were making Get On Up, a biopic of the life of James Brown, a movie here in Mississippi directed by Tate Taylor, one of my friends who also made a little movie called The Help. And he walks into my office in the mansion to take some photographs. He sees my picture with B.B. King, and Mick Jagger looks at me and says, "Do you know B.B. King?" "Oh, yeah. Know him well. Known him for years." I'm from Moorhead, Mississippi. You see, that's a suburb of Indianola. He said, there wouldn't be a rock and roll without B.B. King. There wouldn't be jazz without B.B. King. There wouldn't be Rolling Stones. There wouldn't be Beatles without that man from Indianola, Mississippi. I want y'all to know a few of these things. I could go on and on. The great things that are happening and have happened here in Mississippi are phenomenal. All too often, as I said, we only hear about the bad things, but that's okay. I was talking to my good friend Chris Christie, and I said, you know, sometimes, Chris, it just seems like people have all the wrong ideas about Mississippi. He said, you ought to be from New Jersey. They think we're all in the mafia. I said, well, aren't you? Yeah, everybody has these sort of weird ideas about their state. For heaven's sakes, California. You know, most of my friends say that's the land of fruits and nuts out there in California. It's a beautiful state. So we've got to stop being paranoid. We've got to stop worrying about what other people say about us. We've got to realize, and you need to realize, just how fortunate you are to be in this wonderful state. Last November, as we opened Yokohama Tire Company in West Point, Mississippi. And we looked at some of the world's most advanced systems. Now look, working in a tire plant is not what you think. You never touch it. It's all programmed, all robotics. It's a dynamic system just as Continental Tire will be. Continental Tire is coming to Hinds County. They're putting in $1.45 billion. You know what $1 billion is? I had to look it up. It's 1,000 million. $1,000 million plus 0.45 is going into building another plant that will employ 2,500 people. Last thing, and I'm going to take your questions. Just in case you don't believe me, next time you're flying Delta, you'll see this in your seat back in front of you. It's Sky Magazine. When you haven't got anything to do, you read Sky Magazine. And when you do, you will see that Sky Magazine is focusing on the Mississippi River Delta. Their travel writer came to the Mississippi Delta and he saw the Blues Trail and he saw B.B. King's gravesite and he had good food there and the barbecue and the catfish and he said, you got to go see this Mississippi Delta. It's a phenomenal place. Then there's a magazine called Trade and Industry Development. Trade and Industry Development. Once you get to be an economic developer, or you get to be governor, or you get to run a company, you're going to know a little bit about this. Because this is the industry's magazine. This is the publication that CEOs love to read. because they want to find out, all the bankers and investors want to find out what part of the country is growing so that they might invest in that area. All the real estate people are saying we might want to go down there and look at buying some land because it's growing so quickly. If you'll look in here, I have a little article about a state called Mississippi. Beautiful stuff. Talks about the automobile industry. Making cars in Mississippi. Mississippi has a foothold on the automotive industry map. A foothold. This will go all over the world. People in Tokyo and Beijing will be reading this article and saying, I've got interest in the automobile industry in Mississippi. I want to make sure that we go there. So that's a little bit of what we're doing in this wonderful state, all the way from tourism, phenomenal growth on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. If you haven't been there lately, you need to go see it. The Blues Trail. Tupelo is making a tourism mecca of its own there. I enjoy when people come because every time they do, they say, you know, y'all have the nicest people here. Now, the first time I heard that from one of our industrial prospects, one CEO, I thought, well, thank you very much. And then the next guy would come in looking to put a plan in. He'd say, you know, you have the nicest people here. And thank you very much. I thought everybody did. Unfortunately, they don't. There are a lot of nice people. There are people who care about their neighbors. There are people, more of them, who attend church than most anybody else in America. We have more people who donate to charities than almost anybody in America. So if you want to be proud of some things, look at what you would want one of your children to be. You could say, well, I'd like for them to be an industrialist. I want them to own a company. I want them to make millions of dollars. Maybe I want them to be a famous sports figure. Or I could have someone who graduates from college, gets a very good job, lives the American dream, gets married, and then has children. That's the way it used to work. It was a lot better when you got married and then had children. I don't want to sound like your daddy too much, but it just works. So much better for you. So much better for the young lady. So much better for that child. And so if you had a choice, I can tell you as a parent, you want that stability and success in your children's life. That's what we want for you. That's why we work so hard to make this a state of really nice people. Thank y'all, and God bless you. Thanks, sir. All right, question? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, somebody going to ask questions and handle the mics, and we usually do. There you go. All right. If you're standing, you're first. And then we'll get to everybody else.
Good morning, Governor.
Morning.
My name is Vardaman Doornbos. I am from Saltillo, Mississippi.
Good.
I wanted to ask you, you say a lot about improving Mississippi as a state and progressing as a greater state. I was wondering why you passed the House Bill 1523, which is...
I'm so glad you asked that. We'll get that one out of the way. Because we have strong beliefs in this state. People of faith have very strong beliefs. The Supreme Court said, by a vote of one attorney, that is now Supreme Court Justice, that same-sex marriage is the law of the land. It'll be legal. So you see, there's that great conflict between that. What do you do with someone who says, I have a deeply held religious view? I'm sure you have some deeply held religious views. So what we do in America is we make accommodation for that. You see, we've done so for generations. When Muhammad Ali said, I'm not going to fight in Vietnam, the Supreme Court made a religious accommodation and said, he's a Muslim. He doesn't believe in going and fighting in this particular war. So rather than sending him to prison, they made a religious accommodation. We've done so for the terrorists in Guantanamo Bay. Listen to this. This is very important. This is what the bill does. In Guantanamo Bay, we said, you're Muslim. Now, we know many of them were involved in the attack at 9/11 on the Twin Towers. But the United States of America has said, we believe in your religious faith, and so we're going to make an accommodation. So we provide them certain dietary conditions. We give them a mat, give them prayer time, but also a federal magistrate has said a female belonging to the United States military cannot shackle or escort one of those prisoners. One of our soldiers can't take a terrorist and shackle them and escort them because of their deeply held religious beliefs. Now, I'm not sure I agree with that. If she's a soldier, she ought to be able to do her job. But that's what the federal courts have said. So our belief is, if we're going to make religious exceptions for terrorists, we ought to be able to do so for businessmen in Mississippi and businesswomen. Thank you. All right. Yes, sir. Yes.
My name is Landon Craig. I'm from Tupelo, Mississippi. The line of right and wrong is never black and white. It's blurred, it's gray. So having said that, what is your opinion on the zero tolerance programs in school concerning physical altercations, fights, having alcohol, or having a banned like weapon or something on accident, maybe at school, or if you're defending yourself in a physical altercation?
Like school, high school or college? High school. Yeah, I don't think you ought to be drunk at high school. Let me just go ahead and put that out there. I know that may sound radical, but I don't think alcohol ought to be available in high school. I think they mentioned alcohol. I understand the zero tolerance. It can be a very dangerous world, but I think we have to give principles some latitude. Young men on occasion have altercations. Well, they get in fights. And if you were going to get suspended, now that might be a proper way of handling it, but I don't want to ruin your life over the fact that you, and I'm trying to be very careful here, because there goes governor encouraged high school boys to fight. No. I was in martial arts, so we learned to be defensive. That was the last alternative for us was physical violence. But I want to make sure that we balance that with some common sense. Because things are going to happen at times. Now, I've seen some of the videos, and you probably have too, of these really violent altercations that occur in high school. Now, and see, that's where you want to say, you're out of here. When a parent pulls a gun in the middle of a fight like happened in the metro area, we got to stop that. So we don't want you to be able to act out your perhaps anger and violence in that way, but I think there has to be some latitude for principals and superintendents when things like that occur. I hope that answered it. Get close. All right, guys. All right, yes, sir. I have not met him. We have a meeting set very soon. I have endorsed him. I intend to support him. He was not my first choice, but he was not a lot of people's first choice. But I like him. I mean, this guy just says what he means. And in this strange, sort of politically correct, sensitive world of ours, very sensitive now, if you say what you mean, either one, you could get in trouble, or number two, people like that. And it's time, I think, that we get this country moving. Let me tell you, if you look at where we're at in the energy segment, of everything that the federal government has tried to do, and it was a lot through regulations of slowing down oil and gas productions, we've had more of it than ever because of the private sector. We could be energy independent. We don't have to buy any oil and gas again from a foreign nation. I was in Afghanistan in March, not just in Kabul, where the embassy is at. We flew across the mountains and across the desert to Forward Operation Base Gambri, into the hot zone. I told them I didn't want to just come and be inside the embassy wall. I wanted to go see real soldiers doing their job, and I did. Let me tell you what, these young men and young women are at the point of the spear in Afghanistan, still fighting the war on terror. And the Muslim Spring is beginning. And one of the things that they would say to me as we were leaving in sort of hushed tones, they would say, Governor, if you can help us, if we can get the manpower and the equipment we need, we can help the Afghan Defense Forces win this war. And if we win Afghanistan, we'll win the Middle East. Please help us do that. So yeah, I'm going to support Donald Trump because, you know, I think he'll help do that. I think he'll do some of the things. Now, we don't agree with everything that he says. You know, he's pretty plain spoken. But when I meet him, I will let him know that Boise State asked about him. All right. I'm sorry. Way back there in the back. I'm trying to find out who's going in order because I know you hate to say, well, I was standing up before him, and you guys help me. Steve? All right, way back in the back.
Hi, Governor. My name is Matthew Knight. I'm from Florence, Mississippi. And I was wondering what your opinion is on consolidation in schools.
I think it's a great idea. We have gone from about 160 school districts down to about 140. And that, don't hold me to that number, but it's pretty close. We've consolidated about 20, and each time one of them fail, when they really need help, we try to consolidate them with a school district adjacent to them that is doing better. And so at one point, we had 155, 160 school districts across the state of Mississippi. And that's in a state with 82 counties. And so we had some counties, I remember one county that had 5 school districts in one county. And so we have begun to try to consolidate that. Our hope is to put more money into the classroom, more money into better trained teachers, more money into teacher pays, more money into making sure that you have up-to-date technology within your school system. And so we can't do that if we're spending all that money on administrative cost. And so we now, Republicans are in the governor's office, lieutenant governor's and speaker's office, so we're having a real transformational change in education. We did some radical things, like, for example, we said you can't be socially promoted to the 4th grade unless you can read on the 3rd grade level. Oh my goodness, they got really upset about that. They said, I can't believe Phil Bryant would do that. He'd hold children back in the 3rd grade. He hates children. I told them as a dyslexic child that repeated the 3rd grade, I've had some moderate success in life. But I had a really good 4th grade teacher that recognized I was dyslexic. And she would stay in during playtime. She'd get another teacher to watch her class, and she would sit there with me, and we would read and work and go over letters time and time, day after day, week after week, till I learned to read. And that's where we need to put our money. That's where we need to put our resources in making sure that child in the 3rd grade can read. I'm chairman of a national organization called Jobs for American Graduates. We're in 32 states. We've worked with over 1 million children. Children at risk that are about to drop out between the 9th and 11th grade, and 90% of the time when our organization intervenes, that child successfully graduates from high school. 85% of the time they go on to get a job or go on to a university. We can do remarkable things if we put all our effort, all our focus into making sure we have the best teachers, the best classroom, most modern technology available, and intervention when we need it. So that's our educational plan. Next one. All right, yes, sir. 2 more. Who was y'all help me find somebody? All right, you're next. Hold on. Yes, sir.
Governor, I just want to say it's a great honor to hear you speak. I have a lot of respect for you as a politician. My name is Grayson Wolf. I attend Northwest Rankin High School. I live in Flowood, Mississippi. I also know that you're a strict constitutionalist. You firmly believe in the Constitution and you firmly defend the Second Amendment. What steps have you taken to defend the Second Amendment for all Mississippians?
Well, I'm smiling because I think we're the most Second Amendment friendly state in America. Just 2 years ago, I received the Defender of Freedom Award from the National Rifle Association because we have made it available for you to be able to protect yourself by carrying a firearm. You can go get a permit if you like to, so you can conceal that firearm, but the reality of it is if you don't have a coat on and you want to be able to carry your firearm for protection, you can do so. This is a state that believes that you should not be arrested for exercising your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. That's what the Constitution says. It doesn't say just for the militia or just for the National Guard or just for law enforcement officers. Now, just this year, I signed the Church Protection Act, and so it will allow churches to identify and help train individuals who will be armed during worship services. Now, that sounds difficult, but if that had happened in South Carolina when that madman came in with a gun and killed, I think, 5 or 6 people in that church in South Carolina, if somebody in that church had been well-trained and armed, perhaps 4 of those would have survived. Perhaps that incident could have been stopped before it got started. So yes, we believe that it is your right to carry a weapon to protect yourself, and we have passed some of the most aggressive laws to stop government and local intervention in your right to exercise your Second Amendment, and you should do so safely. All right, sir. There we go.
Hello, my name is Tyler Yarbrough. I'm from Clarksdale, Mississippi. Sorry, my voice going away. I wanted to ask a question about your resistance towards President Obama's executive order to allow transgender students to go to the bathroom that they identify as. So the Department of Justice say that that 50% of transgender.
That's hurting me.
I know.
Man, you got it.
That 50% of transgender students experience sexual assault at least one time in their life. And you argue that allowing transgender students to go to the bathroom of their choice will put young girls in danger. I want to know what steps are you taking to ensure the safety of transgender students?
Well, I think everybody ought to be protected in an environment such as a school, and we do that. As we talked earlier, we don't think you ought to exercise your differences through anger. And to my, I may be missing something, but the transgender population in America is 0.006%. So it's a very small, but again, we're not, you asked about my religion earlier. It's not so much about religion as it is common sense. It's just pure common sense. Guys, biologically, you were created as a male. Biologically, you are a male. Now, the Obama administration now says if you wake up one day or you go to school one day and you say, today I have an internal feeling that I am a female, not that you've had a history of it, if one day you decide to do that, then you are allowed not only to go into the women's bathroom, the young girls' bathroom, but also the locker room and showers. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Who came up with that dumb idea? So let me get this straight now, guys. I went to school with some guys that may have decided one day if we can go in the locker room, I think I feel like a woman. I'm not making a joke of it, but there are problems that are created by this. And the reality of it, schools have made some accommodations, but here's the important part. Not only is it nonsensical to allow men to begin to go into rooms with young ladies at the high school and middle school level. There is a thing called the 10th Amendment, and it says those powers not deliberately under the Constitution afforded to the federal government, all those powers not afforded to the federal government rest at the state level. So you're giving up your rights and you may not know it. The state of Mississippi should make those decisions. School districts should make those decisions. The federal government sent a letter and said, if you don't do what we tell you to do, we are going to keep money away from your students. They can't do that. I know this administration believes it is all powerful, all knowing, all doing, but there's this thing called the Constitution. And they have to obey it. So we're going to go to federal court, and we're going to go to the United States Supreme Court, and we believe at some point the United States Supreme Court is going to say, you're right, the states do have some authority over their educational process. I know I'm running long. Let me just tell you this. That First Amendment that said that this country Congress shall not establish a religion. So we don't have as the King of England did, we don't have a Church of England or church that we force you to go to. That's what that says. But it also says it shall not prohibit or interfere with the free exercise thereof. That one sentence says you also have a freedom of speech. You have the freedom of the press. You have freedom of assembly. You can go and assemble anytime you want to. You can have a right to regress, to complain to your government. That one amazing sentence provided you most of the rights that you have the freedom and exercise today. Now, slowly but effectively, the federal government is saying we're taking a part of those rights away from you. And trust us, we're the government, we know better. And no matter what side of the political spectrum you may be on, never abandon your individual liberties. Never. And as I now see this country as it is evolving, and I was a child but living through the dark days of segregation where the federal government and the Supreme Court started taking rights away from people. Now we see that again. Now we see that occurring in so many ways. Gentlemen, know your rights, understand your Constitution, and defend them. The fate of the nation depends on it. Thank you, and God bless you.